So I don't know if you caught. We did in the context of taking down Jake Tapper's bullshit about Medicare for all and Bernie Sanders a couple weeks ago. We leveled a broader attack on the very enterprise of fact checking, right? Because it's not that, look, of course, when Trump or Bush or whoever, when they lie, when they make 2 + 2 is 7 statements or 2 + 2 is 345,000, right? Like, yes, that's a lie about a certain reality. But this obsession that definitely goes back to how liberals tried to deal with Bush, right? That was the big thing. That was the Daily Show methodology. You play a clip from Fox, you play a clip from some politician, they make a claim, then you make a funny face and you're like, that sounds weird. And then you go to, whatever scientific body or government agency or whatever that contradicts the claim, or you play the politician with another clip of them saying something completely different. And now it's like, first of all, that actually did not work against Bush, in fact, right? Like, things finally started turning because of Katrina and a global economic meltdown. It wasn't because, there were, fact checks on Comedy Central. And now in the Trump era, it's like, yeah, we just lie. So? What? Who gives a fuck, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've liberal friends that, think these kind of things. And if you just, something that's I find to be productive, you just kind of talk to them and say, do you really think that the reason people like Trump is because they think 2 + 2 = 7? That's not why they like him. There's something else going on there. And when you say that, they seem to agree. They're like, yeah, you're right. They probably know that these things are lies, or so it's then you can have a more serious conversation about what is driving the interest in this figure other than these falsehoods or whatever.
It's kind of interesting to me, and I'm not, whatever. I'm not obviously, look, these people are thugs and they're fascists and they're disgusting and they're despicable and they are everything that everybody says about them, right? They're grotesque, they're stupid, they're racist, all that stuff. And look, if you're still, if a pollster asks you tomorrow, what do you think of Trump? And you're like, I'm 100%, I love what he's doing. You are trash. Fuck you. Right. But it is really interesting to me that why was it the political right that in a practical way got just so much more savvy and sophisticated about postmodernism, about branding, about how people actually make decisions. And then this sort of the liberal trained people are still stuck in this brain and cloud fantasy about facts being liberating.
Trump's thing is not an appeal to reason. It's an appeal to one's, passion. And
right.
There is a sort of romanticism to the Trump movement. I'm not saying, obviously it's horrible. There's romanticism to fascism too,
right?
To Nazism, so on and so forth. But I don't think you should deny that that's a component of the appeal. And when we talk about fact-checking everything, you're acting like it's an appeal to one's, reason, one's rationality, and that's just not the case.
So, honey, it turns out QAnon's actually not Colin Kaepernick in a loose association with Bristol-Myers Squibb to make our kids trannies. I had no idea. Apparently there's a fact check that Jake Tapper just put out on that, so we're going to have to reevaluate how we vote in 2018. But what's also amazing to me, though, is that this is actually another area where all these people set the stage for this too, right? Because they either, in the idealistic version, they thought oh yeah, you just fact check them and that'll solve a problem. And it never did, even under Bush, as we said before. And also it's all of you people, you're in industries that are built on spin and messaging and massaging public opinion, and science has been totally undermined and compromised by capital. And news was corporate co-opted and distorted. So you already gave a world where, the same people who freak out about facts and institutions, they were the ones in the leadership level who relentlessly undermined all those things too, where it did get to the point
Right.
where completely craven liars and, hate merchants could come through that door because there wasn't a gatekeeper anymore because the gatekeepers,
Right.
were doing brand campaigns.
Yeah, you make a very good point, and that's that the kind of neoliberalism that preceded Trump. Of course, he is a form of neoliberal, but different in character.
Yeah.
I think it really just evacuated everyone's belief in reason and like. I think there's a deep cynicism in the country that leads them to think, everyone's lying to me. All the institutions are lying. The government's lying. Corporations are lying. Blah blah blah. And when you have a backdrop like that, then it sort of makes sense that they wouldn't really care that Trump is lying and that he's saying these patently ridiculous things, because it's like they've given up on. It's just like you sort of. I wonder if they've been lied to so much that they just. You kind of forget that the truth is even a thing anymore. As you point out,
sort of isn't. That's the problem. I mean, it
right.
is, but we like. I mean, I know I'm not trying to like drag, like people, right? But it's like, or maybe I am, but I'm just saying, like, I know people, almost personally who have like participated in, say, like, AstroTurf, advertising campaigns, right? Where it's like.
Right.
Specifically working for, say, I don't know, a soft drink client or an energy client to, distort their presence in the public stage and manipulate public perceptions of them. And they're also out, blasting away on social media about no more truth. It's like, well, you were part of the very industry setup that makes people not believe in truth. Right.
Right. I'm reminded of the scene. I'm reminded of the scene in Mad Men where you see that Don Draper, he smokes himself after selling this stuff, knowing it's like so poignant. And I feel that is the condition of America. I feel like it's like the way the economy is set up. We all have to. It's like there's so many lies that we all partake in every day,
right.
And then it's like you start to sort of. Yeah, I don't know. It sort of makes sense to me that there is no truth. It's not as shocking to me as it is to a lot of people, because it sort of seems like the natural, conclusion of a lot of these tendencies.
It's right, exactly. And then what was so fucked up was that we had those versions in 2016 where it was like, okay, Bernie came out and he actually told the truth about really important things, right? He told the truth about inequality. He told the truth about climate. He told the truth about healthcare. And he didn't lie, he didn't demagogue, and he didn't bring a bunch of fantasy and conspiracy theories and lies with it. And then Trump, huckster, liar, conspiracy theorist, again, I can't emphasize enough, everything that people say about him is true. I literally cannot picture a more grotesque or disgusting human than Trump. I can't. And he's still like, he was like, I remember people would say like, well, why, because just objectively, like, Trump's lies were bigger than Hillary Clinton's lies. But I was like, when Trump lies, sometimes he's tapping into a truth, like looking at Jeb Bush and saying Iraq was a big fat mistake, right? Like, it takes this asshole to give the most honest assessment of George W. Bush and Iraq. Or in a way, it's like people, I think, get like, it's like, well, but in a way, by Trump lying, he's being honest to himself because he's just so comfortable in just what a complete dishonest scumbag he is that he's like relaxed. He's like, yeah, I'm lying. That's what I do. But I think you're totally right. And I think the part that I'm actually a little surprised by is more that I thought people were a little bit more savvy about this, to be honest with you. Because again, I don't like, even the people I talked about before, I get it. They have to make a living. Like, they're in this economy. I'm not trying to moralize their decision making, but it's like, you would think if you had an awareness of just even like the advertising industry, you would be a little bit more like, yeah, I kind of get that facts aren't just facts, and giving people information is like, that there's more going on here than just, being a stickler.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a fundamental unreality to, like, the entire economic system. Like, What do we make anymore? It's all this high frequency trading on margins, and like everything is premised on these illusions. It's like, yeah, it's like it's finally, and now everyone's shocked that people don't really, believe in reality anymore. It's like, well, we've been setting up the system, like you said, for 40 years now. It's like, what do you expect?
The highest market valuation companies. It's funny. I mean, it's like on one hand they do nothing, and then on the other hand they've completely reshaped our social, labor, sexual, retirement, mobility lives, and then at the same time have done nothing in terms of generating mass employment or making things or any of that, right? And I think that
Silicon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Silicon Valley is such a great example of this. Look at these companies, and every time they have the issues about trying to crack down on, I don't know, whether it's violent posts or hateful or whatever, why don't they ever, I mean, there's a number of reasons they don't do it. One funny thing to me is always, they literally have no employees. They're the equivalent, I mean, compare the amount of money in something like Twitter or Facebook or whatever, to if it was like Steele. How many people would Steele have employed? A shit ton of people.
Right.
Now you look at these companies, the whole goal is to have everything automated with these algorithms, and that's why people are getting blocked for ridiculous reasons, because you don't have a human sitting there doing it because they want to save money and they don't want to actually have anyone do anything. And if you, just look at the ratio of people employed at these Silicon Valley firms that are really supposed to be the drivers of our entire economic system now, since we've offshored everything. There's no one working at them. They're pretty much empty, and relative to any other industry.
And also, and then also the other big reason is it's like, well, why don't they crack down on fascists and Nazis, right? And it's like, well, yes, no doubt there's internal cultural problems in Silicon Valley. There's massive disparities in terms of representation of gender and race, and that distorts company cultures, and that's an important issue. But fundamentally, on just a market level, it's like you're never going to ban that which brings clicks, because that's the business model, right? Like that is the most simplest answer to why doesn't this company crack down on X, because it's going to be harmful for their market valuation, because that's what generates traffic.
Right. It's so naive that these companies are going to self-police. Like it would have to be some form of public involvement in deciding, all right, well, this is how we're going to. But the idea of government is anathema. It's not even that people don't want government. It's like they can't. I don't think they're even conscious of that. There can be some sort of collective response to these things. Like they literally can only imagine. It's like the burning the shoes that we saw yesterday with conservatives, with these people burning. Like that belies complete lack of a political imagination. They can't imagine political participation aside from consumer choices, which is like destroying some object you bought, and that's like the most exciting thing you can do. Like they can't even imagine anything outside of that, and that's why this keeps happening with all these ridiculous. Because they're like, what's the craziest thing I could do with my in my political worldview? It's like, well, I could throw my Keurig out the window, and it's like the wildest thing they can think of.
It's the wildest thing they can think of, and that's another thing that also goes back to the 90s, right? Where it's like, at the same time that we're writing the rules of globalization to totally devalue workers, the environment, to lock in property rights at the for pharmaceutical companies at the expense of AIDS patients, as an example, we're also going to start emerging with these things like corporate codes of conduct and the triple bottom line, and companies are going to voluntarily commit to these ethical standards, and then consumers can vote with their wallets if they're concerned about labor rights or climate. Dick Morris, one of the most disgusting, talk about another fucking, truly disgusting person. Do one, Google search if you haven't heard of him, and you will get nauseous. But he had an idea in the 90s that he was pitching that went nowhere, that he wanted to start working for corporations and have them run attack ads on each other. And his first pitch was that there would be a Reebok commercial that would start in a Nike sweatshop, and these kids would just be being like wailed on while they stitched Nikes, and it would be like Reebok, like, because we don't torture children. And in a way, that was actually like a pretty good expression of some of the ethos of that time, right? It was like, yeah, you should really make a fucking stand, man. Buy Reebok.
Well, now it's by Nike.
Now it's now it is by now. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. As soon as I saw those chuds out there, I was like, maybe I will. I don't know. I'm a Puma guy, but I was like, because I'm not above that. There is a part of me that sees that. And also, I just love like the idea that they're literally in their yards, like inhaling Nikes. Like I'm just picturing and praying for all these like asthma attacks, for all these fucking racist losers freaking out about
it's amazing. Every time,
Kaepernick.
Every time, and it's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to happen forever until they figure out some form of political engagement outside of consumption, which is like, it's just going to keep on repeating. You can just see it play. It's like we're on this loop and we can't get out. It's like we're relitigating the same thing again and again, and it's like I have a bad feeling that the way out of it is going to be this political romanticism that I was talking about before, represented by these far right forces. I mean, of course, it could be far left too, but it's just wild. It's almost like the maze in the Shining, where you're just wandering and just keep seeing the same thing over and over again. Like, we need to get out of this cycle, I feel like.